5 minutes and counting.
There's been another mass shooting in America. This time in a
Fox extreme weather alert. There's severe flooding that right now is slamming the Midwest. And there's a dangerous situation that could get worse today, we're told. Thousands of people now being evacuated from their homes in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Minnesota and Wisconsin could also see devastating floods. Matt Finn is live in our Chicago bureau with an update on all this. Hi, Matt.
Eric, right now, thousands of Iowans have packed their belongings and evacuated and can only hope that their home is spared by the rising flood water. 13 of Iowa's 99 counties under a state of emergency right now. Recent heavy rains causing the Cedar River and streams to engulf communities. The worst of the flooding near Cedar Rapids, where 5,000 homes are under evacuation right now. The Cedar River now expected to crest at 23 feet tomorrow morning. That's 7 feet above the major flood stage and would be the second highest crest in the city's history. Many Iowans say they're getting good at prepping for flooding, but unfortunately, some have already lost the battle to Mother Nature.
Probably gonna have to move because we didn't have insurance that covered this type of thing here. I didn't think that it'd be
18 people have been killed by lightning in India over the past week. Now, 8 people were actually struck and killed on the same day, September the 16th. And then get this, 10 more people just a couple of days later. Now, many more people were injured and are listed in intensive care, and doctors say that these folks are literally fighting for their lives. Now, this is a look at the area where those lightning deaths occurred, and sadly, lightning deaths are pretty common in India, killing more than 2,000 people in India every single year. They've had a lot of storms recently. They're going to get more. Many of those people that we hear about those strikes happening to are farmers who work outside in open fields. Again, there's more thunderstorms in the forecast for the next couple of days, so folks definitely need to be careful.
Shifting our focus to Japan now, the country's southernmost island of Okinawa was rattled this afternoon by an earthquake of magnitude 5.7. According to the Japan Meteorological Agency, the quake hit at 2:20 p.m. with a depth of 40 kilometers below sea level. It went on for approximately 1 minute and followed another tremor measuring 5.5 just minutes earlier off the coast of Hokkaido, Japan's northernmost island. No immediate injuries or damage have been reported. Experts say even though the two quakes occurred at opposite ends of the country and almost simultaneously, there was no possibility of a tsunami developing from either one.
Well, people in southeastern China are still coping with the aftermath of Super Typhoon Meranti. Another huge storm is barreling down on them. Typhoon Maggie is now less than 1,000 kilometers off the coast of the southeastern city of Xiamen. It's expected to sweep through Taiwan Island on Tuesday before making landfall on China's southeastern coast on Wednesday. Local authorities in Fujian province are evacuating residents from coastal areas and ordering all fishing vessels to stay in harbors. Railway authorities canceled nearly 80 train services along the coast for Tuesday and Wednesday.
A young Perth family is demanding answers tonight over fears of contaminated water near Pearce Air Base. The couple, who is expecting its second child, has been forced to use bottled water for months.
Colin and Nicole Butland can't trust the water in their Bullsbrook home. They're so worried about contamination from the nearby Pearce Air Base. For 6 months, they've relied on bottled water. They use it for drinking, cooking, even brushing their teeth.
Good boy, there you go.
With an 18-month-old son and a baby on the way, the family wants answers from the Air Force.
You think, am I going to end up harming my child from something I can't control?
If it is, and we're showering and bathing our kids in toxic water, then it's a real worry.
The Defence Department is testing for a toxic chemical in firefighting foams, once used at the base and linked to health problems. An investigation was launched in May, part of a wider probe of Air Force facilities across Australia. So far, of the 22 residential bores tested near Pearce, 19 came back clear, 3 with slight levels of contamination. But more testing is needed. The independent investigation is expected to be complete by early next year. There are concerns the contamination levels could rise in summer because there's less water in the ground, but authorities say the areas will be retested.
I think we just have to have confidence in the system and let it take its course. Let's see what the investigation brings up, and then we can take the appropriate action.
The Butland family says the state government should consider providing water for residents' tanks.
We want answers, we deserve answers, and quite frankly, this is not good enough.
Emma Sheridan, 9 News.
Children as young as 10 are regularly sexting their classmates with nude and semi-nude photos. The revelations have prompted Sunrise parenting expert Michael Carr-Gregg to urge parents to report any child who has a social media account underage. Darren, do too many parents think it's okay for 10-year-olds to be on social media?
Well, yes. Look, I'm so out of date I am. I used to say for years that, look, don't let your kids have a computer in the bedroom. Make sure it's out in the lounge and you see what they're doing with their computer, what they're looking at. Now, of course, the way phones have gone, kids all have access to them for safety reasons, etc., etc. The one thing I would say, though, in all this, and you need parental control, but I would not, even though I'm going for this National Public Register of convicted sex offenders, just want to say that if it's teenagers and kids sexting, that doesn't put you on the register. I mean, you're children, so that won't happen. But I think parents need to be far more vigilant about this because, you know, in some countries, in some states, you can go on a sex register for life because you were a kid just sending pictures to a friend.
Yeah, Pauline, how do we stop kids as young as 10 sexting?
Okay, guys, I'll tell you, parents be parents. Why do we need kids with smart iPhones at 9, 10 years of age? Why don't we give them the cheap ones that you can buy from Woolies for $30? All they need, if they need a phone for security reasons, give them the phone for that. It is harder, to, you know, for the image to come across with texting. What's happened with kids these days that we're treating them as adults? Where are the days the kids got on their bikes, go and play out in the yard, get outside, but they're all on their phones? It is absolutely take them out of having any social abilities. They feel that they've got to keep up with their peers. It is not good enough. Parents, start taking up the job. Keep watch on your kids. Don't give them what they want. If they want a phone, say no. You don't get a phone. You don't get a phone till you're 13. We never sort of grew up till we actually went to high school, and then we started, you know, got a little bit older, but we were kids. Take them back. Let them be kids.
A transgender bathroom issue in a Dripping Springs elementary school has parents picking sides.
Tomorrow night, they are expected to pack the school board meeting, either to show support for a student or tell the district it's gone too far. KXAN education reporter Aaron Cargyle has this story.
I certainly believe that the district has done the right thing.
Andy Hutton's heart goes out to a child at his son's school.
We heard that there was a text that was going around school rallying parents who were trying to exclude this third grade girl.
A student at Walnut Springs Elementary, born as a boy but identifies as a girl, who parents say has been allowed to use the girls' bathroom with multiple stalls since the beginning of this school year.
I don't see any problem at all.
I think a lot of parents are wondering why, you know, how did the school board and the superintendent come to this decision, or the principals, to start allowing boys into girls' bathrooms? And how much more of this are we going to see?
Jonathan Sines with Texas Values, a group of Christian conservative advocates, has been helping parents address their discontent with school officials.
Parents were not notified, from what we're hearing. They haven't been made aware of this, and so a lot of people feel like this information was hidden from them.
Sines says it comes down to rights, privacy, and safety. This father says those are his concerns too.
My kids certainly understand who this child is and love and support her as just a third grade girl and not as any kind of symbol or political football.
In Dripping Springs, Aaron Cargyle, KXAN News.
We reached out to the Dripping School District for comment. The communications director said she'll have something for us tomorrow. State Representative Jason Isaac from Dripping Springs said, quote, "I'm still studying the issue. However, I do not think any boys, no matter their age, should be using girls' restrooms and vice versa."
President Francois Hollande has gone to Calais, vowing to completely dismantle the jungle migrant camp there before winter. Hollande, who's faced criticism over the conditions in the port from political rivals, has admitted they're unacceptable. During the visit with police and other officials, the French leader called on the UK government to do more to resolve the migrant crisis. I also want to reiterate my determination to see the British authorities play their part in the humanitarian effort which France has been doing here and will continue to do. Around 9,000 migrants and refugees live in the sprawling camp on the outskirts of Calais, most of them trying to enter Britain illegally. Under a new plan, those still living in the camp will be moved to reception centres where their asylum applications will be processed.
Outside the stadium where Charlotte's beloved Panthers football team lost its home game, demonstrators continued a 6th day of protest against the police killing of Keith Scott.
Stop the injustice. Show us love.
The protesters had hoped the game would be canceled during this time of pain in the African American community.
I don't think it's celebratory. I'm sure the people in the stadium are celebrating, but I believe it is a time for pause and concern as to what's going on with our country and where we go from here.
At the height of the protest, a couple hundred people faced off with police in riot gear. The police guarded some 70,000 football fans attending the game.
The city of Charlotte has called this football game now an extraordinary event, enabling the deployment of all these security resources, as you see. City police officers joining National Guards members, making sure any form of protest on the streets here remain peaceful.
Scott's death was captured on camera. Police say they saw him with marijuana and a gun, and that the 43-year-old refused to obey police commands.
Don't shoot him! Don't shoot him!
Scott's widow says her husband held only a book, and the videos do not clearly show Scott's hands. At Temple Church International, congregants believe police planted a gun recovered at the scene that police say bears Scott's fingerprints.
There was no gun present on his person when he was shot.
Pastor Kevin Long told church members to vote out political leaders who do not support police reform and to boycott non-black owned businesses.
We should be participants in the fight for justice and equal rights and the fight against injustice and inequity in America.
The pastor says the violence seen on Charlotte's streets does not represent black Americans. But that anger does boil in the heart of the community, fueling mistrust of police.
The man accused of gunning down 5 people inside a Washington shopping mall is set to appear in court in about 30 minutes. Police say he opened fire inside a Macy's store, and officers catching up with him on Saturday night after a 20-hour manhunt. Dan Springer's live in Burlington, Washington with the very latest. Dan?
Yeah, Jenna, we just did get the arrest warrant for Arjan Satine, and they do lay out 5 counts of premeditated first-degree murder. Bail has been set for this defendant at $2 million. He is expected to be in court for his initial appearance in about 20 minutes. We're getting a little clearer picture of the suspected mall shooter, but a clear motive is still a mystery. In these charging papers, they mentioned that he had a falling out with his father the night before the shooting and that father's rifle was missing. Now, people who knew him in high school say he was socially awkward, loved to play violent video games, and had a fascination with guns. Police searched his apartment yesterday. They also interviewed an ex-girlfriend who used to work at a Macy's store, but not the one where the shooting took place Friday night. We also know Satine had family problems with a history of assaulting his stepfather. He immigrated from Turkey when he was a boy, and we're told he's a legal permanent resident. 4 women and 1 man were killed in the shooting, among them a 16-year-old girl who had survived cancer as a young child, a 95-year-old woman and her daughter who was a probation officer, and a 61-year-old man named Chuck Egan who died trying to protect his wife.
Chuck ran and Pam ran behind him, but she tripped and fell, and he came back to help her. And then in the process, he got shot 3 times.
And the 5th victim was a 52-year-old woman, the only one who was an employee of the Macy's store. All others were just there shopping. And in this charging document, in this arrest warrant, they indicate that the 16-year-old girl was the first to be shot. Then he went to the makeup counter and shot the rest of the victims.
There's been a bitter war of words at a specially convened meeting of the UN Security Council over Syria as diplomatic efforts to broker peace gave way to recriminations. Russia, it was suggested several times, may have committed war crimes, especially over last week's bombing of an aid convoy near Aleppo. Washington accuses Moscow of consistently lying over its support for the Assad regime.
When Russia is espousing fiction, we have to call that out. What Russia is sponsoring and doing is not counterterrorism, it is barbarism.
Russia denies attacking the aid convoy, blaming rebels or a US drone. Its ambassador said rebel groups were responsible for the collapse of this month's ceasefire and bringing peace was now an impossible task. Vitaly Chokin blamed hundreds of armed groups and the US for failing to rein them in. More than 200,000 people in Aleppo have become prisoners of the terrorist groups Jabhat al-Nusra and others, he said. They're trying to use women and children as human shields. Airstrikes are used only against the militants' positions and with laser-guided bombs. The UN Special Envoy said bunker-busting bombs had been used on civilians in Aleppo. Britain's ambassador also held Moscow responsible for their plight.
They are now facing an unprecedented, unrelenting onslaught of cruelty. And it is increasingly clear that it is an onslaught beyond the capabilities of the Syrian Air Force alone. In short, it is difficult to deny that Russia is partnering with the Syrian regime to carry out war crimes.
This heated Security Council meeting saw repeated accusations against Russia. For some, the change in tone marks a new phase, throwing out any remaining hope of reaching a peace deal for Syria.
Now first stage performance. T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
There's been another mass shooting in America. This time in a